Alright, we want to thank everyone who joined the recent closed beta. Your support, curiosity, and genuine feedback have meant a lot to us. It's been a privilege to watch players explore what we've built so far, and your input allows us to take an honest look at where the game stands and shape our next steps. All forms of critique, whether big or small, are critical to the development process, and our top priority is to address these shortcomings accordingly. To that end, we're carefully reviewing the feedback you've shared. Some of it will be addressed here in part 1, while the rest is thoroughly reviewed and will be covered in detail in part 2. Animation, motion, combat experience improvements, performance optimization, lighting, and other graphic enhancements. You know what's crazy, guys? And I want to like do a call out to this. People look at this beta as if it was a demo. And I don't know if that's the perspective of the player, the user's fault, or if that's the studio for not outlining very clearly what their intentions were here of what needed to be tested and marketing it more as a hype train to get into to check it out instead of like marketing it as, hey, we got an unpolished product. We need help. Your help testing these parts of it. And I think if like they were, I don't know, man. Like I'm so mixed on it because I understand from their perspective, like why what happened. But at the same time, from the player perspective, it's like they could have been more transparent on the intentions, and it would have gone like infinitely further. Hit feedback inconsistency. There's a major issue during the closed beta test. Some actions felt sluggish or disconnected with attacks, dodges, blocks occasionally failing to register as expected. Yeah. Big problem there. So hit detection, general combat flow, it looks like. So they're saying redesign the packet intervals to help with that. So they're doing better hit detection, timing accuracy, and refining the packet structure. And if you don't know what they mean by packet structure, is they're encapsulating, like, let's say the combat stack, what's happening actively, and then doing some type of a refresh rate. That's where you have the interval. So as things are happening in video games, like you're always doing this refresh to pull in. A lot of shooters, you hear about it a lot more because that's like hit detection, and the refresh rate goes a long ways when you want it to be more responsive. And I'm sure you've all played those games where it just feels like slop because you hit it and nothing happens, or I shot that guy in the head, it didn't kill him, so it didn't register right. So they're saying they're trying to improve it to make it feel more responsive, right? And that's a cool thing to call out. Currently, motion and combat packets are interconnected in a shared data stream. Yep. Which may be contributing to the sync issues. We plan on separating these into distinct systems, actively reviewing and resolving all collision detection and consistency to ensure combat interactions feel consistent and responsive. Yeah, same thing I just explained with the packets and how they work. So they're saying that there's too much in one to read, so they want to separate it out and read them in parallel, I'm guessing, or doing something like that so that like the combat just feels better. Class weapons. While each class has a wide range of abilities, we'll be introducing a new system called the Matrix. In the next test, to give each weapon a more distinct identity. That's one of my biggest feedbacks, is it doesn't felt like it mattered where I put my points. I just chose one that had the fastest animation. Some of the abilities just felt like there was no difference between them except for one had a faster animation. That's cool if they're bringing a little bit more value to it, more thought, more like build out of like what a class should be and what a class should feel like, instead of just like a generic, I go down tree, I put points in, la la la. You know what I mean? And then the Matrix, I heard Cannon mention something in one of his, when he was reading through this, that the Matrix was something that was already kind of somewhat revealed a little bit to him and or disclosed to him. So, and he said it's kind of exciting, so that makes me pretty excited for it. So big call out or shout out to that. We aim to diversify skill usage of each weapon based on progression paths. Even if two players are using the same weapon, their primary skills may differ. The same skill can also produce different results depending on builds. Our goal is a wide range of playstyles, whether you're focusing on chaining skills, switching between weapons, or exploring other tactical options. Farming will become more dynamic, and players will need to find gear with stats that match their playstyle. Right now, they have like random like traits on the weapons. They're saying they're going to have these random traits that are a little bit more diversified instead of just crit rate up, damage up. It might be something more like a passive for each effect. So that's kind of cool if they're doing something like that, in addition to tying into these skill trees, these skill branches, let's call them, instead of just like a smorgasbord going down that you can like put points wherever. So pretty cool. Good call out. With added playstyles, we're creating new animations to ensure each weapon feel distinct and expressive in combat. Okay, I mean, this all just ties together. It feels like I mean, some of the animations were lacking. My biggest frustrations with camera, and that looks like the next item is camera. We are fixing the issue where the camera angles affects visibility when you're too close to the walls or certain environments. Awesome. That big W there if they're actually, I mean, like, I feel like that one should have been known. The following issues with the lock-on system will also be addressed. Abrupt screen change when changing targets. That's very important. Cameras getting too close to target during melee combat. Camera reset after combat. Skills being cast on the direction of the players facing rather than the camera. Interesting. We're also addressing an issue where the camera shakes vertically in certain areas. Okay, so a bunch of camera problems. I mean, those are pretty major camera issues that they had. And I would like to think that they could have already seen those before putting out this build, but I understand the build's an older build and we were just doing testing for like stability and general stuff. But like, I don't know, I think they could have closed off this testing a little bit more and had a better time with it. But yeah, camera's a problem. I hope they get all those things worked out. I mean, you have like something like Elden Ring. It has it all figured out, guys. Like, this is not something that, it's not like uncharted territory. You have Elden Ring that has done this and all the Souls-like games that continue to do this. And have the camera in a similar style with combat in a similar vein. Yeah, but you know, when you're first doing the development of something like that, being able to just match it is bigger than it sounds. I understand that. So hopefully they get that worked out. Unless it's a 5-minute marketing play to fix all these issues and generate a ton of hype after the next beta. I don't think so. I don't think you want any, like, some people say that any publicity is good publicity, and I don't think that's true in the case of what happened with this last closed beta test. It was very hyped up and maybe I don't want to say overhyped, but it's definitely hyped up a lot more than it should have been for just a test. And a lot of people, like I said earlier, took it as a chance to check out the game for free and not just say like, and a lot of people have a hard time separating potential and looking at the base product and what it's offering and the direction it's going from, like, you know, it's like someone that says the UI was bad, so I hated it. It's like, well, you can fix the UI. The UI is a very easy thing to fix. Camera, like the camera was bad. Okay, well, you can fix the camera. And that's why they do tests to get feedback and find out where like the commonalities are between a wide data set, and then start making incremental changes and like developing toward a better path. The controls: to enhance the overall feel of combat, we're redesigning hit reactions by increasing the reaction duration from 1 to 2 to 4 seconds. Wait, hold on. This provides clear timing for follow-up attacks and adds a greater sense of risk and reward when taking damage or landing hits. So when you're hit, it doesn't specify if this is mob or other, right? So that would be you able to hit the mob and you also being hit by the sound of it. They didn't specify. We're also reviewing the fixing unnatural character movements and collision inconsistency that cause characters to appear as if floating. Okay, these are like, it's good to focus on a lot of these technical things. But I do wish they were a little bit more, I guess I'll keep reading. Maybe they'll go through it later. Performance optimization, GPU and rendering overload. We're restructuring how assets are rendered to reduce GPU load and improve real-time performance. Okay. High resolution nanite geometry will only be applied where necessary. While frequently repeated assets will rely on instanced static mesh, ISM, or hierarchical, I thought it was hierarchical, but hierarchical, I guess. To minimize draw calls and reduce GPU strain, assets will be managed in batches, and draw calls will be consolidated to minimize CPU, GPU communication, overhead, maximize rendering efficiency. Like, I know some of the lower end rigs were having major issues with performance to mid-range. I did not have many problems. I was probably averaging like 90 to 100 frames. So that's pretty straightforward there. We're shifting level design toward reusable environmental assets. I mean, guys, like, this first sentence, all I can think of is them reusing the asset that like New World used, and I still don't know if it was New World, like they stole from New World, or if it was like a generic asset. I have no idea. I haven't looked into it. I don't care that much personally, but yeah, just that first sentence kind of like makes everyone think of exactly that, like a trigger word, right? To improve development efficiency and runtime performance, to speed up production and simplify maintenance, while reducing memory disk and rendering overhead. Didn't people keep saying that the beta was an old build and that most of this was already fixed in their internal build? Now they say we're gonna work at them. This Chrono's a scam. My understanding is the CEO/president came forth saying that it's like a build from the end of last year. And then they kept using the same build from the last like 6 months for testing or something like that, which means they have a lot of pending changes, Now, and they showcased a different video with a different build in it, where it did appear that some of those things were already worked out. But that doesn't mean, like, what they're explaining here is not one-to-one with what you just said, Insights. Like, explaining how the combat stack in packets work versus movement and combat is a little bit of a fine-tune point to go against, in addition to the performance issues and things like that. Now, not everything in this is even correlating to what you just said there, Insights. I know you're like probably half serious, half not, but just so that for those that read that and want to like pick up a pitchfork and a torch and start rioting, they are explaining things that could are different from like your actual feel in when you're in the game. Not just like your the surface level on the outside looking in. Don't believe anything they say before you see it. That way you can't get scammed. Like, yeah, I mean, like, even if you watch a trailer but the trailer looked completely different, right? It had different UI, it had different mobs, the lighting looked different, the performance looked different, but it looked like all in-game footage, right? So I'm not going to say there's some kind of conspiracy theory here, but I just think they should have been a little bit clear if their intentions were of the test to look at like breaking performance and like seeing what they can do and how far the code goes or the systems go as they currently are set up. The trailers looking nothing like the game is the biggest red flag. I think they explained that one, Insights, when they talked about which build that was based off of, but that just like, I mean, like, if you take it at face value, that means this next closed beta test has to have what we saw in that other trailer, in addition to improvements and feedback that was given for this closed beta test, right? So closed beta test 2, but like if they don't have a lot of these things that they talked about and promised, like it's going to go in a bad direction for them, right? I think they would be shooting themselves in the foot. So hopefully they do get that kind of figured out. All right, where are we at here? We're also minimizing redundant materials and textures by standardizing the art pipeline with trim sheets. Now, I've never worked with trim sheets. Cannon asked me if I knew what those were. I have not worked with those personally. I wasn't really on the graphical side of that. I was more on the, whenever I was doing development, it was more like the hard coding, the systems, the infrastructure, the microtransaction backend, subcomponents, like item coding, character coding, combat stack balancing. I did a little bit of like lore and creative writing and things like that, all bundled in. But I never went on the front side where you're actually, you know, applying the code in the mesh. So I don't know a lot about the graphical side of things. I do understand the network and packet side of things. I just like these right here, not something I can really like talk fully on. Oh, hey, look at this, trim sheets. They explained it for us. Trim sheets consolidate commonly used detail elements such as metal edges, moldings, panel lines, and bolts into a single texture laid out with a 0-to-1 UV space. Each asset is then UV mapped to the appropriate section, allowing for a wide range of details using just one shared material. This eliminates the need to create separate high-resolution textures for every object. In the Unreal Engine, trim sheet-based materials are loaded only once, which reduces memory usage. Oh, so it's like a preloaded asset that then gets shared across multiple assets, right? Okay, so let's consider it like a library file that then gets referenced a bunch. Cool. All right, so that makes sense. Okay, so now we know what a trim sheet is. Makes sense. All right, memory usage. We're restructuring the loading system by separating rendering data and collision data to reduce memory usage and improve system stability. This is a very like broad and generic statement, but like it's good they're calling that out because that was feedback that was given. There's a lot of people that had performance level issues. All right, collision data loaded alongside rendering data. Previously, collision data was loaded alongside rendering data even when it wasn't needed. With the new structure, only rendering data is loaded by default, while collision data is selectively loaded based on player proximity and line of sight, completely avoiding unnecessary memory usage. For nanite meshes, we're planning to replace per polygon collision with simplified low poly collision meshes. So instead of calculating based off of all the polygons, you're using a mesh to then have a collection of those, and then that is being where the collision detection is being handled, it sounds like. Then that will then lower the CPU and GPU overhead because it's doing less calculations. That makes sense. It's not like it's you need to have like that level of detail across like that. And that's just my understanding of what I just read, at least. Unused collision primitives will be unloaded from memory to further optimize resource usage and improve loading speed. I see. We'll be finding our garbage collection, GC, and memory allocation structure to manage unused areas more efficiently. Players don't need to know this. iCram, I agree and I disagree. It's a closed beta test to like get feedback on a lot of different areas, and this is places that this is apparently a large part of the feedback came in with this as a problem, right? So them saying, we identify a problem, this is what we're doing to resolve or work or make a change on the problem is a good step. You know what I mean? Whether you agree with it or not, or care about it or not, obviously is more subjective. And that is, if you don't care about reading about back-end coding, packet handling, mesh, collision, trim sheets, and things like that, that's fine. Like, but I think it's really cool and fascinating because it gives me more confidence in a studio that's being transparent on what's being worked on. Let's see, resources will be managed on their data layer state and with only active layers remain loading, while assets and inactive layers are prevented from loading altogether. This ensures that only relevant assets consume memory, resulting in better performance and system stability. How long do you think this could take on minimum? Yo, Turk, you talk about like in general, how long would I think it would take to implement all these changes? It's tough. It's really tough to say, man. Like, I don't know the size of their team. Some of these things are things I don't have experience with personally. It's like with the way they simplify it in these explanations is like means they have a general understanding of what's being done, what's happening, what's next, and what, you know what I mean? Like, it's such a variable answer. So I don't have like, I can't disclose like, or say rather that this will take about this long, you know what I mean? Because I have not done those things in particular. Now, like performance and memory usage, performance, development efficiency, GPU rendering, like these type of categories are something considered never-ending work. You will always be trying to fine tune your code, right? So with the way just a good example is I could code something brute force and it could take up about 5,000 lines of code in a language, and I'll have that block out there, right? And that's just my first pass at it. Now, when you're executing, or when the system's handling executing 5,000 lines of code, it may take a while, right? Depending, this is just a completely like loose analogy here, so don't read into what I'm saying. And then I could then go back to that code and I could try to do a little bit with a little bit more finesse. I can use like, let's say, a stored procedure to handle because there's duplicate lines of code within that block. And then I could then say, okay, then we reduce it by another 1,000 lines. So now we're only executing 4,000 line with call to the stored procedure. And then we're going to drop it down again and drop it down again. So that as they, like, this is just an example of like optimizing, right? So as you reduce the amount of code and overhead being used, the game will perform better. And it's an ongoing battle that developers have to do in a live service type game, especially as you add in more assets. So as they explain more and handle more, it's pretty cool and straightforward. We're working to reduce unnecessary lighting calculations by removing unused lights and limiting the excessive use of stationary movable lights. We're also transitioning to a cluster-based light management system to reduce rendering costs, light overlap, and shading complexity, resulting in more efficient rendering. To improve the overall quality of lighting, we're standardizing exposure values and redefining the priority and range of key lights to improve contrast fidelity and maintain consistent exposure across the scene. Interesting. I never worked with like lighting in that side of the engine. I was always back in dev, so I can't really comment on like what this means outside of what it sounds like it means, which is we're working on lighting, right? And these are the things we noticed, and we're trying to remove unusual lights, which is something we experienced, right? Please note this update includes a number of technical terms. We've done our best to explain things clearly, and we appreciate your understanding as we focus on sharing our development plans as transparently as possible. Part 2 will take a closer look at what's ahead. In addition to the areas we've already covered, we'll continue improving combat systems, technical stability, graphics, and animations. We'll also be addressing new topics such as sound, UI, UX, gameplay flexibility, in-game guidance, balance, content flow, progression, replayability, social feature, narrative, serviceability, and bug fixes. We don't plan on rushing ahead without first getting things right. We want the next version of Chrono Odyssey to reflect all the hard work and honest feedback that has gone into the process. Our focus remains on quality and delivering a more polished, complete experience. Stay tuned for more details, and as always, we look forward to hearing your feedback. Thank you again for being part of this journey. General thoughts here. These are a lot of good notes. It's things that I think a lot of people are complaining about. I do hope that they take the initiative here because they kind of, like, I'll just be blunt. They may have lost a little faith of the consumer with their latest closed beta tests. I think they should have been a little bit clearer on what they were testing, what they were working on, as we all know. Now, that's not to say I don't think the game has potential. I enjoyed my closed beta test experience, and I gave some good feedback overall, I'd say. I do hope that they were upfront and they had a different build that's better, that they for some reason didn't want to do the closed beta test on. And these changes and feedback they got here is going to be compiled into that build. And the next closed beta test has to do, like, take mini large steps forward to restore the confidence of the people that are testing it and get a little more people behind it again.